Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Amateur Experts Podcast, where we are experts on absolutely nothing, but we might be a little bit of experts based off of last week. We talked on our last show about our week 4 smash or pass and our DFS lineups. We patted our own backs pretty hard because we know nobody else is going to do that. So now we have a chance to make it 2 weeks in a row where we're smashing. We're not passing. We're going to smash this week, and I'm really excited. So I'm Landon Oliver here with my co-host Andrew Scott and my other co-host Jared Holly. What's going on, guys?
I think there's something to be said with the fact that, this is the first full week that we're all three here for the week 4 recap. We're here for the week 5 smash or pass, our money-making matchups. We're coming off our best week of the year. I think that, things are starting to click. We're starting to get that,
the flow.
The flow of things. Exactly. Yeah. So, we're really just now starting to hit our stride, so it feels good.
Maybe COVID did me some good on those DFS picks. That worked out actually really well. But no, it was our first full week together again. Like, it obviously paid off. We were very confident going into week 4. That's probably the most confident I felt all season. I'm sure you guys feel the same way on that. It was a great week. Let's do week 5 is going to be even better. Let's do
it all over again.
Yep. So now we will get into our smash or pass of week 5, and obviously we rotate every week. So this week Jared has the running backs, Andrew has the wide receivers, I've got the unfortunate distinction of doing the tight ends, which is damn near impossible. And then, as always, we do a group consensus on quarterbacks, and we will give you some quarterback options as well. So like always, Drew's right up there at the top. We're just going to start at the top, go down with the wide receivers. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do, actually, because we all know how much everybody loves running backs. And everybody's listening to the show because they want to hear the running backs. That's what that's what they're thinking. So
that's the important position, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we're actually going to start with the running backs this week. We'll switch it up. So Big Holly has running backs. Let's get your smash, your pass, and then one sleeper pick.
Yeah, so the smash of the week is Alvin Kamara. I've been wanting to say it for now 4 weeks straight, but as a joke, kind of a running joke. But I think it is like it's a weird situation that Kamara is getting over 20 carries a game, which is unreal for Alvin Kamara. Normally he would get 20 plus touches a week, but it was a lot in a passing game. Last week was a very odd week for Alvin Kamara. He had 26 carries with no targets, and that is simply not going to happen this week. I really feel confident on this pick. Going into the season, I would not have felt this way against Washington, which I felt like their front 7 was the best front 7 in football. They have not shown that, and it seems like anytime the football team has touched the field, it's become like a point fest. A lot of times, even like last week, we were high on Heineke, and he paid off big time in a game against Atlanta, which Mike Davis did find the end zone. And Mike Davis is not the running back as Alvin Kamara is. I feel like this
Patterson,
is Cordell Patterson. Yes, like that's what I'm saying. This Washington football team is kind of a mess defensively, and this is the week that Kamara completely takes full advantage of it. You're not going to get the premium ownership discount with Alvin Kamara. He's going to come with a lot of ownership, but something we can touch on later on in the show. Derrick Henry's ownership is going to be through the roof, and Kamara's ownership is high, but Derrick Henry's is ungodly high, and you can definitely pivot in other departments and be a little contrarian with other options. But Kamara is definitely my smash this week.
Okay. So
love to argue, man. I mean, if the receptions even somewhat come close to being what they used to be, these 0 receptions is just not. I think New Orleans saw with the fact that they dropped that game to the Giants last week that clearly something was wrong with their game plan, and the glaring missing thing there was the fact that in my mind, I think he's the best pass catcher on the team right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
And you give that guy no receptions, that's just, you're not going to win the game that way. So yeah, he's going to get the rushing opportunities, and then if the receptions bounce back, yeah, he's due for a pretty big week.
Yeah, you got to get that guy the ball in space, and I know Jameis doesn't have the propensity to drop back and throw the check down. Jameis always wants to throw the big, long, basically, for lack of better terms, excuse the language, but the fuck it balls. That's Jared's,
there's been less of that this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To Jared's point, the 0 receptions, I think Sean Payton's going to try to rein that back in because they saw it last week. It was not successful at all. And I wouldn't bet on Alvin Kamara having back-to-back weeks with no catches.
It's not happening. That's not happening. Similar situation happened in week 1 for Austin Eckler, where he had no targets and the world lost their mind. And next week he had 8 targets. So these guys right here are definitely everything we thought they were going into the season. They are still pass catching backs. But this guy's in a league of his own. Him and Christian McCaffrey are the man when it comes down to that statistic. And it's coming back this week. He's a smash.
DeAndre Swift.
I like it.
Swift too. Yeah.
I like
Did
it.
you know the top 2 actually, Najee Harris actually leads the league in running back targets.
Well, he's the entire offense right now.
He leads the Pittsburgh Steelers in targets.
Yeah, exactly. Which
He'll be
is
mentioned
the whole
again
team.
later on in the show too.
DeAndre Swift also has a super, super high amount of targets as well. So
Yes,
yeah, those are just some other examples of some pass. You got some backs. But now I want to get into your pass of the week because
It's time to get spicy.
Yeah, this is hot right here. This is I like this. It's hot.
So this one is very hot.
Woo! Woo!
Aaron Jones is our pass of the week, and so I got some reasons. I do feel like it's gonna be a high scoring game. There's gonna be a lot of
you're gonna have to come with reasons for this.
Yeah. So nothing I do is out of shock value. Like I make legitimate cases for everything I stand by. Aaron Jones has an ankle injury. He has played through it. AJ Dillon's going to get some carries in this game. And he got some carries in the last game, and I think it's going to cut into Aaron Jones' production. There is going to be a lot of points in this game. Cincinnati's defense has improved significantly, like under the radar, gotten a lot better week by week. I like a lot of pieces in this game, but Aaron Jones is just definitely not somebody, especially in daily fantasy, that I trust this week. If you're not on the Aaron Jones fade train, that's cool. I think he's going to come in at lower ownership than what he normally would. Personally, I think there's pieces of this game that I would much rather get to, and Aaron Jones is not a part of that puzzle.
Yeah.
So just to make sure that we're clear here, like you're not in redraft leagues, you're not saying you're going to bench him. You're just saying, in redraft leagues or keeper leagues, whenever you're starting him, he's in your lineup, you're going to play him, but just temper expectations. And then this might be a guy at DFS that you might want to fade this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to temper expectations with anybody. If a running back with an ankle injury that's a big deal, whether it's a high ankle, low ankle, it's an ankle injury. A great example of that is last week with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook played in that game with an ankle injury. Dalvin Cook had 8 carries in that game. He was out carried by Alexander Madison. Dalvin Cook is another one this week that has a great matchup, and he almost made this list. I almost went Dalvin Cook over Aaron Jones. I have a little bit more faith in Dalvin Cook. I feel like he is a more talented player out of it too. That's the reason why I went Aaron Jones. And I think that there's other ways that the Packers score this week, and Aaron Jones isn't a part of it.
Well, look, you can find plenty of shows out there that are taking, guys that are running back 30 on the week and saying you probably shouldn't play that guy whenever, you probably already weren't going to be playing that guy. So I can appreciate the fact that you're,
Henry's the smash of the week.
Right. Exactly. So, not that you're saying, I've got Trey Sermon on my bench, I'm going to play him over Aaron Jones. You're not saying anything like that, but I can appreciate the fact that you're calling your shot on, this is a guy that's a top 5, top 10 net worst running back. And, you're saying you might want to temper expectations this week.
This is a guy who had a 3-touchdown game this season.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people are dependent on this guy.
I stand by my statement. I think Aaron Jones is a fade this week due to injury and due to, I feel that Green Bay gets in the end zone different ways.
Right. So if you're building those DFS lineups this week, you're going to see Aaron Jones toward the top of the running back salary, might want to go
8,400 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so might want to go somewhere else. So
yeah, I like it, man. So
I do
mean,
too. I do too.
This is one of those things that like if you hit on this, I mean, this
It's going to bring a lot more credibility to our podcast.
Exactly. I mean, we're going to be looking pretty
If
good.
I don't, then I
Then
mean,
y'all can just ignore it. Whatever, it happens.
Yeah,
But
we're
I
just
really,
Yeah, we're in the
that's
business of
definitely
being
one.
right. We're either right or
we don't talk about it.
Yeah, we don't talk
Exactly.
about it. So
Move on to something else.
yeah, so speaking of being right again, I know we also have a sleeper at this position from you. Who you got going on here?
Well, for one, good luck topping Drew's last week. Gainwell.
Woo, yeah, it's gonna be tough to have an RB1 in your sleeper.
Yeah. This one right here, man, is it's Leonard Fournette. And I still think he's gonna garner some ownership. Nothing too insane on either side. Fournette's coming off a game where Tampa Bay kind of looks stagnant in the passing game, and this guy he carried a lot of the bulk of that offense against the Patriots. I really don't feel like Ronald Jones is a problem anymore as far as cutting into productivity for Leonard Fournette. I really like the way he's running. He looks fresh. He looks like the man for that backfield. I think Tampa bounces back in a big way. I think they put up some major points this week, and I definitely like Fournette getting in the end zone maybe multiple times this week.
Yeah, Miami's been bleeding points to the running back position the last few weeks. So
they have,
you know, and
I think Jonathan Taylor finally, he had his big game.
Yeah, that was his get right game, right? So the one thing that might cap his upside is if Gio Bernard does come back this week and takes the pass catching work back. But even then, like you said, Ronald Jones really has been mostly a non-factor. So Leonard Fournette should be in line to get the early down work in a matchup where they should be favored, where they should have a lead, and where he should get plenty of carries and, multiple attempts to score a touchdown. So I think this is a really solid pick here.
I think also like Fournette, I believe he moving forward is a 20-touch guy. And I think he can get it done in multiple ways, whether it's 20.
That's a lot of touches.
I think he is, man. Like I really do. I think Tampa is going to be a lot more balanced down the road. I think it's going to be Fournette. I think Bernard's going to bleed into it a little bit, but I think early in games, especially Fournette's still going to get targeted. His target share may go down a little bit, but I think he's the man. I think they've finally given up on the Ronald Jones experience, and they're rolling out for Fournette the rest of the season.
I definitely like this call at least this week. I think he's a great play against Miami.
Yeah. So tough to argue, the matchup for sure with that. So now that, pretty much takes up our running backs. Now we get into the exciting stuff with the wide receivers, which Drew has this week. So we're going to see if he can recapture some of the magic that he had last week and provide you with a 3-for-3 hit at that position.
Yeah, I hope I can, but I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm going to start it off with rookie sensation Jamar Chase as my wide receiver smash of the week. And this is really all about the fact that Jair Alexander, who in my mind is he's in the discussion for the top corners in the league with Jalen Ramsey and him and, a couple other guys. I think he's right there in that discussion. He's not playing this week. So Jamar Chase gets to take advantage of a secondary full of guys that cannot cover him, period. Like he is too talented, and he's playing against the Green Bay Packers, who will put up points. Like Aaron Rodgers is going to put up points. Cincinnati's defense is improved, but I do think that this has the makings of a high scoring game, and he has asserted himself as the wide receiver one in this offense. T. Higgins has the chance to come back this week. Even if he plays, I'm still comfortable in saying that Jamar Chase is the number one option in this offense. And I think he has a huge week in the making here with it. I would not be making this call if Jair Alexander was playing like that. That's how much he affects a game in my mind. So seeing him out, it's full steam ahead for me with Jamar Chase. If I have him, obviously you're playing him if you have him in redraft leagues, but I would be expecting a big week out of him. And then in DFS, he is going to be in several of my lineups this weekend. So that is my wide receiver smash of the week.
Like it.
Yeah, I also, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jamar Chase, and like you said, they're going to have to keep up. And if there's, anybody that can do it, especially right now, Joe Burrow is playing fantastic football, so he's going to have to throw the ball. We'll see, whether the CJ Ozuma renaissance that happened
Right.
last
Yeah.
week continues on. We'll definitely be curious about that. But
Yeah. If he catches 2 touchdowns again this weekend, all bets are off.
yeah,
If he
exactly.
catches 2 touchdowns this week, and he's going to be picked up in a lot of leagues.
No kidding.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing to follow up with Drew's point, from a DFS standpoint as well. Jamar Chase is a great play, and he's coming in at low ownership. Like we're looking at, it's still a little bit ways from Sunday, but we're under 5% on Jamar.
Also,
Chase.
an underrated aspect
Wow.
of
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Which, if you're looking for a pivot off of Devontae Adams, who is going to be the highest owned wide receiver on the slate, Jamar Chase might be the guy in the same game.
Yeah, and another underrated aspect is that Joe Mixon is banged up once again as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this could be a game where, either Joe Mixon plays and he's at 70%.
He's limited. Right.
Or, they go with the backups. And I mean, if you're trying to score against Aaron Rodgers with Samaje Perine and
Chris Evans.
Yeah, Captain America. You're looking pretty rough. So yeah, I think this could, everything points to this being a big Jamar Chase week as well. So now let's get into your pass. I'm kind of curious about this one as well.
Yeah, and it's just honestly, I mean, I've been such a huge Jamar Chase fan. It's just fun that it lined up to where he looks like he's going to have a great week. The week that I get to cover receivers, so I couldn't not shine a light on him, and take my opportunity to do that. So Jamar just made me look good, baby. Wide receiver pass is going to be Amari Cooper. And this one does not feel great, but it didn't feel great the last time I had the wide receiver section and I chose Terry McLaurin as my wide receiver pass of the week. And it just so happened that he lined up that he was playing the same New York Giants team that Amari Cooper is going up against, and he received the same James Bradbury shadow experience that Amari Cooper is now going to get as well. And I still, as great as he is, I still don't think that James Bradbury gets the respect that he deserves in terms of being a true shadow corner in this league. So, like I mentioned, I made this call a few weeks ago that it's nothing against the player. I loved McLaurin, the player, whenever I made this call, and I went right back to him the next week against Atlanta. We saw what he did against Atlanta. He was somebody that we talked about. But, the week prior, he was getting shadowed by Bradbury, and he was very limited. Amari Cooper is going to get that same experience. And he had 2 games against the Giants last season. In those 2 games combined, he had a total of 64 yards and 0 touchdowns. Now, Bradbury shadowed him in week 5, which was, I believe that was the week that Dak got hurt. So Dak played most of that game. I don't believe he finished it, obviously, with the injury, but he did play most of it. And he was shadowed, Amari was shadowed by Bradbury. Now, the second game was whenever the carousel of quarterbacks was happening. So you weren't expecting a whole lot from Amari at that point. And Bradbury did not shadow Amari, but he did cover him quite a bit. So, it should be of note that 2 matchups last year, 64 total yards, no touchdowns in 2 games, with most of that coming against Bradbury. And that's a lot of what you can expect this week. Now, where you drafted Amari, I don't expect you to have good enough options to be able to bench him this weekend. But, similar to what Jared was saying with Aaron Jones, you need to temper expectations, and he will be in 0 of my DFS lineups this weekend. Now, Amari Cooper is an extremely talented receiver with huge big playability. He could make me look dumb on one play. That's all it's going to take with him, with how explosive he is. But if I'm betting the percentages, if I'm betting the odds, I'm going to bet that Amari Cooper has a down week this weekend compared to what you expect. And CeeDee Lamb draws a Dory Jackson, who's actually been pretty decent this year. The Giants have a pretty decent 1-2 punch at corner, surprisingly enough. So we'll get into why there might be a certain tight end that's a good play this week because of stuff like that here in a little bit later. So I won't take Landon shine off of that. But if you're gonna pick a Cowboys wide receiver to play this weekend in daily lineups and things like that, I do think CD outproduces Amari Cooper this weekend. But they both have have tough matchups, but Amari has the tougher of the two, definitely having to go up against Bradbury. So that is my wide receiver pass of the week.
So obviously you said you're not benching Amari Cooper. So who's a
No.
sleeper that you could possibly plug in just, in case maybe you have this guy at the end of your roster and you're curious? Because we saw last week, nobody would have thought, last week that, you're benching the guy that you had as the bust and you're putting in Kenneth Gainwell.
You're playing Kenneth Gainwell over Damian Harris type of thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to follow that logic, if you somehow have Amari Cooper on your roster and you also have none other than Laviska Shenault and you want to try to play him for some more upside, look, this picture I had to use for Shenault is from last year because Shenault has done virtually nothing this season. So there's not really any great pictures of note from him, but Laviska Shenault has been vaulted into a role this week with the DJ Chark injury, to where as much as Urban Meyer tried not to use this guy, he has to now. Like Laviska Shenault's talent is too good. Urban Meyer tried to hide it. He tried to keep it tucked away for whatever reason. But now that DJ Chark is not on the field, he has no choice but to put Laviska Shenault to use. So, by now you guys all know the unfortunate news surrounding DJ Chark and his injury. And Laviska Shenault gets a Titan secondary that has been saying they're bad might still be a compliment to how bad they've been. But even digging into that even more, and shout out to Mike Clay for this too. If you're not reading his wide receiver cornerback matchups on a weekly, but he puts out a great article on ESPN Plus. It's worth what ESPN Plus costs on a monthly basis just for the article. If you're a fantasy player, if you're not reading the article, you're doing yourself a disservice. But so credit to Mike Clay for this. But the Titans have allowed the second most fantasy points to wide receivers this season, and the ninth most to perimeter wide receivers, the third most to slot wide receivers. But specifically, Christian Fulton's side of the ball, his side of the field, have allowed the most fantasy points to wide receivers, period. Janoris Jenkins, on the other hand, has been ninth best against wide receivers in terms of fantasy points given up. So Jenkins has been fine. His side of the field has been okay, but Christian Fulton's has not been. Now Marvin Jones.
That's pretty crazy. That's a weird stat because PFF had Christian Fulton graded as the third best cornerback.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? But
Landon hates PFF so much.
Look, some of their grades really are kind of they've got good data, they've got good research, but some of their grades and stuff really does leave you scratching your head. But
computers will never beat the eye test.
But so Marvin Jones lines up on what is perceived to be Janoris Jenkins' side of the field about 44% of the time. So about half the time he should be seeing Janoris Jenkins, who isn't really considered much of an upgrade in terms of your matchup. Now, Shenault, on the other hand, he had been in the slot 82% of the time, but that was with DJ Chark on the field. But we had mentioned Tennessee's bad against the slot, and they're bad against the non-Janoris Jenkins side of the field on the outside, which are the two places that Shenault should be lining up with DJ Chark out of the game, and out for the season. So, I regardless of where Shenault is lining up in this game, with his big playability, with the uptick in volume and targets that he should see, and with the matchup, I think that Shenault is due for a huge breakout game if you have him sitting on your bench. Unfortunately for me, I dropped him in a redraft league I had right before the DJ Chark injury. So that was unfortunate in my part, and he got swooped up, and as he should have been. But if he's sitting on your waiver wire, go grab him before this weekend, because you're going to have to pay up in terms of fab or your waiver priority after this weekend. In my opinion, I think he's going to blow up. I think he's going to be one of the main targets in your waiver wire, and he's pretty affordable in DFS as well. Excuse me. So, that my wide receiver sleeper this week is going to be Laviska Shenault.
I can dig it for sure. And I really hope. Go ahead.
Oh, just one follow up. Drew mentioned he's cheap in DFS. He's a very affordable salary. And if you're wanting pieces from that Jacksonville game, against Tennessee.
I think Marvin Jones.
Yeah, Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault are half the ownership of James Robinson and not even a fraction of the ownership of Derrick Henry. So there's ways to get access to that game without playing a guy that every single person in the face of the planet is going to be playing that week to be different. And Shenault is a great option. He's currently at 6% ownership, where James Robinson's closer to 13.
And so, I just, me personally, I love Shenault as a player coming into the season. I felt like in terms of redraft ADP, I felt like Shenault and DJ Chark's ADP should have been flip-flopped because Shenault was being drafted 3 to 4 rounds behind Chark. Now that didn't come to fruition early into the season because for whatever reason, Urban Meyer was like, nah, I just don't want to use this extremely talented player on my roster. I just want to bury him. But
Urban knows about burying things.
He sure does. And
when he puts his finger in something, he stands by it.
And now he has, with DJ Chark out of the picture, he has no choice but to put Laviska Shenault to use. So I'm excited to see the talent get the volume. So
are we making Urban Meyer jokes about standing by something? Because I think I remember his wife was at home with the grandkids.
Oh, dude, that's enough, man. We got
all right. Yeah, too far. We're too far. Actually, you know what? You never go too far with an Urban Meyer joke. I'll say
because
Urban Meyer loves tight ends just like Landon does, which is the next thing that we're going to get into.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's your lead in to your next segment.
So yeah, let's get about the Urban Meyer this position group real quick. Stick my hand all the way up. Dalton Schultz is he is going to be my tight end smash of the week. The only difference is I'm not going to have to apologize to my fiance after he goes off. So
no,
it's an appropriate picture too after an Urban Meyer comment. It's like
that's if Urban Meyer somehow listened to this podcast, he would be standing there just like Dalton Schultz. Like he would be standing like this.
Yeah, I mean,
I would probably cheer for Urban Meyer if he listened to our podcast.
He would be doing the Dalton Schultz thing, and then as soon as he heard Landon's latest punchline, he would go straight for the fake heart attack.
Yeah. We probably need to retire the Urban Meyer jokes. We don't want him to. Because look, as much as I make jokes about him, I want him to stay the Jaguars coach for as long as possible. I love having him in the AFC South and in the division. It's a fantastic thing. So, more power to you, Urban. I hope you stick around. So Dalton Schultz, just to kind of piggyback off of Andrew, with the James Bradbury thing with the Giants actually are a pretty decent team against the wide receivers. They're not so decent against the tight ends. And this is where it gets a little cool with Blake Jarwin. So obviously Blake Jarwin's there. Dalton Schultz is there. You're wondering, who catches who? We're starting to kind of see this kind of push away. So last week, Dalton Schultz saw 48 snaps as opposed to Jarwin's 33 snaps. Also had 19 routes ran to only 9 for Jarwin. So we can kind of see Schultz starting to pull away with that tight end job there in Dallas. And as a result of those numbers, because he is getting used more in the passing game, Dalton Schultz had a 36.4% target share last week, which is insane. And not only that, he's being productive with those targets. He caught 6 of 7 targets for another touchdown. He's got 3 touchdowns already this season, 20 receptions. And, it provides. Look, Dak Prescott has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's looked absolutely fantastic. You're not going to want to target Amari Cooper because of the James Bradbury thing. So you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, maybe Zeke, Tony Pollard get involved. But once you get down there in the red zone, it looks like right now there's nobody that Dak trusts more to throw the ball to than Dalton Schultz. And he's starting to pull away with that tight end one job there in Dallas. So I think that's just where I come in, thinking this is a great matchup for him. He's finally getting the work, and this is the smash spot for him. Even though he's already been smashing the last few weeks, I think it's just a continuation of what he's been doing.
No, I think there's still plenty of people out there trying to, that are kind of doubting if this is legit or not too. Because coming into last season before Jarwin got hurt, he was the talk of like the late round tight ends of guys that was going to emerge, and and then he got injured and Schultz stepped in and played fine. But then coming into this season, even I just assumed that was going to be Jarwin's job again. Like coming into this season, if I had to draft a Cowboys tight end, I would have taken Jarwin over Schultz, and Schultz has clearly, to your point, he's taken the stranglehold of that job, and he is the starting tight end for this team. And for a team that throws the ball as much as Dallas does, with a quarterback as talented as Dak is, that is a very valuable position, to be in for fantasy. So, I think this is something that people need to take note of. To your point, Dalton Schultz is for real, and if he's still somehow out there in your waiver wire, you need to, if you're hurting at tight end, you need to go grab him grab him before this week, because he's just going to stack up another week of great production, and and he's a great DFS option as well. So yeah, I think this is a good call, just to kind of put people on notice, like this is for real.
Yeah, normally I would be concerned with a team that has two tight ends, the talent of these guys, kind of like last week when I said fade Cleveland with their tight end core. But I'm with Landon on this one. Actually, I do believe Schultz is their tight end one, and a lot of reason why I said fade Cleveland with a committee, and it's different in this scenario, is the quarterback play. So there's such a divide between Dak Prescott and Baker Mayfield. That's no knock at Baker. I think Baker's a good quarterback, but he's on the MVP level right now. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, and people can say whatever about that, but it's the truth. In Schultz's case, I think he's more liable as a red zone target as well, where I would have faith in him definitely over Amari Cooper this week. I think him and Zeke are the best 2 Cowboy options out of an offense this week, with Prescott naturally as well.
Yeah, Zeke has been eating the last few weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, sure has.
Yeah, he looks great. So now get into my tight end pass. Something that Urban Meyer should have done last weekend. Sorry, I can't. It's right there. I've got to.
Jokes write themselves.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I think that's the color shirt the girl was wearing too.
Oh yeah, might have been.
I feel bad for that girl. I do feel bad for her.
So unlike him, though, I am going to pass on the tight end with the orange shirt, and that is going to be. Jesus, it's gonna be it's so easy. It's gonna be Noah Fant against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this one does worry me a little bit, just because KJ Hamler's gone. We know the Jerry Jeudy injury there. There's not a lot of targets, and this is really all dependent as well on Teddy Bridgewater. If Drew Lock is in, this is for sure a fade. But even with Teddy Bridgewater, this pick worries me a lot, just because the Steelers are one of the top teams against the tight end position. They are allowing just 5 points per week to the fantasy or to the tight end position. Now, I'm trying to think, could this end up being a decent spot just because of the volume that Noah Fant's going to see? It's possible. He does, I believe he's got a 27% target share with Hamler and Jeudy both out last week. Had 6 targets, got in the end zone. But as we know with tight end targets as well, they are not all created equal. If he does not get into the end zone, and as it's been shown now through 4 weeks, say what you want about the Steelers offense, that defense is legit, and they do not allow tight ends to score touchdowns. If your tight end does not score touchdowns, you're going to have a really hard time being a tight end 1 on the week. And I think as great as Fant has been to start the season, this might be a week where he might end up taking a step back, maybe being, maybe he takes those targets for some yards, but I don't think he gets into the end zone. And that's just what worries me this week about Noah Fant.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk about how the loss of Bud Dupree on the defensive line, but there wasn't so much talk about what they lost at the cornerback position with Mike Hilton, and there's another name escaping me, but they lost 2 corners in the offseason that wasn't really talked about that much, and they've been really bad against wide receivers so far this year, to where like if Drew Lock's playing, even with how bad Pittsburgh has been against wide receivers, I don't really want to start the Denver receivers. But if it's Teddy Bridgewater, I'm still not confident in Noah Fant, to your point. But like the way you beat the Steelers is by targeting Courtland Sutton and Tim Patrick and guys not named Noah Fant. So, to your point, even if they have competent quarterback play, the way that you beat the Steelers is not by targeting the tight end position. So I think that this is, if you drafted Noah Fant in redraft leagues, it's tough to imagine there's a better option on the waiver wire unless somehow Dalton Schultz is sitting out there in your waiver wire still. You're probably just kind of stuck playing Noah Fant in your redraft and keeper leagues and things like that. But in DFS, there are certainly better options in Noah Fant's price range, in terms of the matchups and things that the guys in that range are facing. And if Teddy Bridgewater does play, like I said, I would much rather play the receivers against this Pittsburgh offense or Pittsburgh defense, because the Pittsburgh defense has also been really good against the run. So like, I don't want to play Melvin Gordon in this game. I don't want to play Javonte Williams, because they're splitting carries, basically 50-50, and they're going up against a great run defense. So you don't want to play either one of those guys. You don't want to play Noah Fant. That leaves the receiver position. And then not to mention the over-under in this game is extremely low with these two offenses.
Yeah, so, that's the undermining thing.
Yeah, I think this is a really solid pick regardless of who the quarterback is, because, even if it is Teddy and they have competent quarterback play, you just simply don't beat the Steelers by targeting the tight end. So it's really tough, man. The tight end position is really difficult on a week-to-week basis, especially whenever you're trying to tell somebody who's going to have a bad week, whenever most tight ends are probably going to have a bad week if they don't score a touchdown. But, Noah Fant, you drafted Noah Fant to be good much more often than he's going to be bad. So I think this is, the Fant's a guy that I'm off of this week as well. I think this is a great call.
I'm with you guys 100%. I think if you want to be desperate and play anybody from this game, obviously it's Najee Harris on the Pittsburgh side. And then those wide receivers for the Denver side, if you're playing on FanDuel, especially, I think Tim Patrick could have a bounce back game. But that over under is just so bad this week on that game that I won't be rostering anybody from either side of a ball except Najee Harris. I will have some Najee Harris just because of the volume.
Right.
But
volume is king.
Volume is king. And on price differences too, Noah Fant is actually $100 cheaper than Tim Patrick. So if you do want exposure to this game, Tim Patrick at $100 more at $6,000 opposed to $5,900, I would definitely go that route at a lower ownership. Noah Fant's still getting 5% ownership, which is kind of high for a tight end in a bad spot.
Yeah, I would much rather play Tim Patrick than Fant this week. So yeah,
Tim Patrick's currently at like 1%.
Yeah, sign me up for that all day, especially if Teddy plays.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now to give you just a sleeper at the position, and granted, this is all kind of iffy on if Gronk plays or not, but right now I believe he is questionable.
Doubtful.
Yeah, doubtful. So I mean, I think he sets at least one more week. Especially because of the team they are playing. They can afford to set him this week and let him heal up a little bit more. But that is Cameron Brate, the tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with Gronk out last week. He did get 6 targets, which is right around what Gronk usually gets. Now, he only turned that into 2 catches and 29 yards. But the New England Patriots, we already know, they don't give up a ton of points to tight ends to begin with. You know who does give up a ton of tight end points, and that is the Miami Dolphins, who, Mo Alley Cox just ran roughshod all over them last week. But even before then, they're just not good against the tight end position this year. And this could be a spot to where if Cameron Brate starts, if he plays in that Gronk role, we know how Brady loves to target those tight ends and slot receivers down there in the red zone. If he's able to get, another 5 to 6 targets, this could be a spot for him to score a touchdown or so and sneak in outside, because right now I believe he's probably outside of the top 20 tight ends on the week. He could sneak into that, tight end 10, tight end 12, and you're looking at streaming. So, I mean, if you're looking at streaming tight ends, if Rob Gronkowski is officially rolled out, this would be a guy that I would go ahead and add. And then if he's rolled out and you're streaming a tight end, go ahead and fire this guy up in your lineup and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add other than I agree 100%. If Gronk's out, Cameron Brate should be a smash play this weekend for somebody. Whenever you're talking about tight end streamers, you're talking about which tight ends have the best chance to catch a touchdown. And
yeah, which basically it's not like other positions too, where if you're streaming like quarterbacks or you're streaming running backs for whatever reason, you have multiple options there. You're looking at if you don't have one of 5 to 6 tight ends,
you're pretty much streaming. You're
streaming tight ends at that point, because it is such a one, it's really volatile, but 2, it's so thin. So unless you have a Darren Waller or Travis Kelce, I mean, even a George Kittle, Dalton, I mean, I'd go ahead and put Dalton Schultz right up there right now. But
TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, Hawkinson, those type of guys. Like I said, there's about 5 or 6 guys right now that you can start every week with confidence. One of those including Noah Fant, which right now I would rather take a shot on Cameron Brate instead of Noah Fant right now. Just for this week.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not saying season long, but
I'm with you on that too. I think he has more upside than Fant does.
Yeah, I think he has more. Yeah, I think he has more of a chance to get into the end zone this week than Noah Fant does against that Steelers defense.
It's all about the quarterback too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, would you rather have Tom Brady throw into your tight end or Drew Lock? You tell me.
Or Teddy, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Teddy would be just fine. But even then, like I said, even if it's not about the quarterback, the Steelers do a fantastic job against that tight end position. Where Miami Dolphins, you would rather have Tom Brady, but you would also rather be playing the Dolphins, because if the roles were reversed and Cameron Brate was playing against the Steelers, it would be I wouldn't want any part of him. Meanwhile, you got Noah Fant going up against the Dolphins with Teddy Bridgewater. I'm on that all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot to do with just the matchup, but the
Dolphins are another team where, like, we kind of talked about it last week, and we're going into week 5 now. You have to adjust your thinking in terms of how you felt about teams coming into the season versus what they've put on tape. Like, Washington was supposed to be a great defense based on what they did last year.
Yeah,
they're not.
They're not. I mean, it happened.
Miami was supposed to be a great defense based on what they did last year. They have not been, and especially to the tight end position for fantasy purposes, like you're saying. So, with no Gronk out, it was clear last week that Gronk and Brady obviously have more chemistry than Brate. Like there was one pass where Brady threw it one way, Brate turned the other way, to where if Brate had turned the way that Brady thought he was going to, it was going to be a great pass, and it wasn't. There's stuff like that that's lacking, but they have another week under their belt now. And he's got a great matchup. So, I think that this is a great call, especially if you're hurt at the tight end position and you're hunting on the waiver wire. He's out there. I mean, you can go grab him tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
One more thing to add on that too is OJ Howard has not been a factor this season. Like, I thought maybe he would be too. There was times in that New England game he looked lost. Like, he really did look lost on the field. Like, he wasn't sure exactly what the offense was wanting to do, where Brate felt like he was the more comfortable tight end. So if anyone was nervous about playing Brate as a streamer, and at the end of the day, it is a streamer, like Landon said, it's a dart throw. When you're digging that deep into finding anything in the tight end position, I don't feel like OJ Howard is a problem. And if you're on the fence, if you were to think OJ Howard could cut into Cameron Brate's production, I don't think that's an issue at all.
Faux show. So we will go ahead and now move on to everybody's favorite position, the quarterbacks. Now, unlike where we do our individual rankings with these positions, we do a group think and group discussion before settling on 3 quarterbacks. And we will start with the first quarterback, and it is a quarterback smash spot. And that is Jalen Hurts. Now you might be sitting here thinking, well, duh, he's the number 3 quarterback overall in fantasy football. Of course, he's going to be in a smash spot. But with the matchup this week, I don't think it's quite as clear cut. There might be some other guys that people might have some questions about on whether they should play them. I'm here to tell you that you should not. We all know how great the Carolina defense is, but look, I mean, the rushing floor of Jalen Hurts, not only that, but the guy has looked really good through the air. Devontae Smith has looked absolutely fantastic this year. I believe he's got a couple 300-yard passing games, and he's been able to get into the end zone. But then you add his passing with his ability to run. I think for sure he's a top 12 quarterback, but I think this week he's borderline. And like I said, Carolina has been in the news. The Stephon Gilmore trade went through. Everybody's talking about, the 3-1 start. The defense is really coming together. But remember, Stephon Gilmore does not come back until after week 6. So he's not going to be in that lineup, even though that defense has been in the news all week. Now, as great as that defense is, like I said, they're just allowing 181 passing yards per game and only 19 fantasy points to the quarterback position. They have not faced a quarterback as dynamic as Jalen Hurts is. Guy that he's clearly shown he's way
outside of Dak, who performed well against this defense.
Exactly. Dak played extremely well. But even then, as great as Dak is, he doesn't have the rushing ability.
Right.
That's what I mean by his dynamic. When I say dynamic, I'm not saying better. I'm just saying that he doesn't present
for fantasy purposes.
Yeah, for fantasy purposes, the same issues that a guy like Jalen Hurts would.
Right.
That's just where I view. I mean, you guys got anything to add on Jalen Hurts?
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think his floor has been like 7 or 8 rushing attempts was like the lowest he's had on the season. So, I mean, whenever you got a guy that's approaching double-digit rushing attempts at the quarterback position on a weekly basis, on top of the fact he's top 300 plus passing yards the last 2 weeks, Devontae Smith is the real deal. Like, we can just accept it. It doesn't matter what his body weight is. None of that shit matters. Whenever you can't stop him, whenever you can't stop him off the line, whenever you can't match his footwork, it does not matter how much he weighs. We can accept that now. He's got 2 solid tight ends to catch passes that he is tagging. If you could combine those 2 guys into one tight end, that would be great for fantasy. Unfortunately, you cannot. But for Jalen Hurts, it doesn't matter because he reaps all the rewards of that. So, no, I mean, with the defenses, Philadelphia's defense is like they're kind of so to where he needs to be involved as the game goes on. He's not getting game scripted out. They're not just running the ball. And whenever they do run the ball,
that's the thing.
I think he's their leading rusher, right? Like he's been more effective running the ball than Miles Sanders, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying is not only that, but for whatever reason, their running backs get absolutely minimal touches. Now, great. You did great with the Kenneth Gainwell pick last week, but even then he only had, I think, 7-8 touches on the, he did the most with those touches.
Yeah, a lot of big play.
But yeah, I mean, they don't run the ball. They don't give their running backs touches.
No.
Jalen Hurts gets most of the rushing work, as well as, they're gonna throw the ball. They're gonna throw the ball a lot.
Yeah. I think this is just hammer it home. Jalen Hurts is legit, at least from a fantasy perspective. Real life, you can feel how you want to feel about Jalen Hurts, but from a fantasy perspective, this is legit. Like, he is a great fantasy option at the quarterback position. No matter how good you think Carolina's defenses look through the first 4 weeks of the year, do not fade him this week. Do not even don't have a second thought about starting Jalen Hurts. He's great in your regular lineups. You can plug him into DFS lineups. Jalen Hurts is great.
Yeah. The touch on DFS lineups too. This may be one of the weirdest situations I can remember in a long time. And of course it's still not Sunday, and everything changes on Sunday, and it could be a completely different scenario. Currently Jalen Hurts is at 5% ownership with a guy with a ceiling. Yeah. With a guy with a ceiling that could be as high as 40. That's insane. So with Hurts in the daily fantasy, if you don't feel confident on his receiving core, which I personally like his receiving core a lot, he is the few options at quarterback too where you can run him out what they consider what people call naked, where it's just Jalen Hurts. You don't have to stack him with anybody whatsoever.
Right.
You can run him out and easily win a tournament with this guy's legs and arm. He can throw 300 yards and he can rush 3 touchdowns. Like it's all possibilities with Jalen Hurts. He's a smash.
Yep. And so that was just what we kind of decided with our smash. Now I'm going to let the resident Justin Herbert hater on here, Jared Holly. Just kidding. I know it's kind of weird because we've had Justin Herbert now in our pass spot 2 times in, this will be week 5. So 2 out of the 5 weeks he has been in our pass, but remember, he's also been in the smash. And remember, we were correct on the first pass. So,
yes.
So yeah, go ahead, Jared, and tell us why we are passing on Justin Herbert this week.
Well, it never feels good to pass on Justin Herbert. I mean, it's definitely never one of those things that I'm like, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, let's pass on Justin Herbert. Like he's definitely just absolutely awful and a bad player. Look, at the end of the day, the Cleveland defense is improving. It is. And I think this game could be a lot less scoring than what people feel like it's going to be. We've seen that last week, and I was a victim of it last week. I went extremely heavy on Minnesota and Cleveland.
Exactly. I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
Thinking it was going to be like a point fest, and we had 21 total points. It was a complete disaster. Like that. We had a great week on FanDuel. We had a terrible week on DraftKings because of that game right there. Herbert's coming off a great game against the Raiders, where he had 3 touchdowns in the first half. The guy is a great quarterback. I think this is a week where you have to lower expectations a little bit. I think Cleveland is going to make this game dirty. I think they're going to make it look ugly, where I do feel like the Chargers are a finesse team. They remind me a lot, Landon, you'll love to hear this. They remind me a lot of the Colts Peyton Manning teams in a lot of ways. The Herbert team, yeah, it reminds me a lot of that, with possibly a more aggressive defense, but the offense is I think it's a finesse offense right now. I just don't like Herbert this week. I feel like this is the week you can't bench him, obviously, if you drafted him, but you have to lower expectations. And as far as daily fantasy goes, you can find cheaper value with similar ownership, with same upside on both sides on Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's defense fooled us last weekend. We thought that we were going to get a high scoring matchup, like you mentioned, between them and Minnesota, and that did not appear to be the case. And while I do think that Herbert, if I had to choose between Herbert and Kirk Cousins, as great as Kirk Cousins has been, I'm still going to take Herbert. But
sure.
That Cleveland defense is legit, and I think they're going to keep this game close. And there's no shortage of talent at the running back position for the Chargers either. And so if they need to ground and pound this thing out and play the defensive game, the Chargers defense is ready to do that, and the run game is ready to do that too. Austin Eckler is just, my God, that guy is a joy to watch.
Yeah,
and
he's a
granted, he provides value in the passing game for Herbert too. But yeah, this could be one of those games that, like last week, that we pegged as a possible target for DFS. It just ends up biting you in the ass, and Herbert could be a victim of that, unfortunately. So
my other concern too is I think Baker being injured is also going to make Cleveland slow this game down dramatically with them running the ball.
Well, I think even if Baker was healthy, I think that's just the way they want to play.
That's their pace. Cleveland plays at a slower pace, and they're not going to let the Chargers play at the pace they want to. I feel like
this will be a very similar game script to the Cleveland game, Cleveland Kansas City game earlier this year. So if you want to get a better understanding of how this game plays out and how they want to attack the Chargers, I suggest you go back and rewatch that game.
I think that's a good example, but I still think Mahomes is a better quarterback with better weapons.
Yeah, Mahomes is fine in that game. So hopefully Herbert isn't as good as Mahomes was in that game.
Yeah, I think Cleveland I
think he's got better weapons.
I think right now too, I think both these teams they're great teams, and they're both needing to win to keep pacing both their divisions, because both their divisions are getting better and better every week.
This is going to be a great NFL game.
Yeah, it's going to be a good football game, but for fantasy purposes, I think it's going to be ugly, and I think it's not going to be a whole lot of individual great performances from either side of a ball. That's the reason why I think he's a fade this week.
Yeah, and we were going to talk about Russell Wilson as a possible fade, but that game was happening while we were doing the last podcast, and it just, by the time this got on the air, they'd be like, "Oh, the game was already over." Yada yada yada. We would have been right. All I'm saying, before the game even started.
Which, we try not to do our Thursday, games just because generally we record afterwards, but
right.
Russell Wilson was a guy that we all kind of agreed and targeted, while the game was, underway. And, if we were able to call that before the game and get this podcast out, we would have been correct on that as well. So,
it would have been a good call if we could have possibly got this uploaded before then. But, nonetheless, we're here. So we got to give you somebody other than Russell Wilson. So here you go.
Yeah, well, now let's give you somebody other than Justin Herbert. And Drew, I'm going to let you take point on this one, since we've all, I took the smash, Jared took the pass. Let's see.
Look, and this is a guy where if I've got both of these guys in a league, if I've got Herbert and this guy in the league, or if this guy's on the waiver wire and I've got Herbert, I'm absolutely picking up Joe Burrow, and I'm starting him over Justin Herbert with confidence this weekend. Now, if Joe Mixon does end up playing, I do think it could possibly slightly decrease his upside, just because of the possibility of Mixon, running in a couple of touchdowns, whatever the case may be. But I don't think Mixon plays, and if he does, I do think he'll be limited. And Joe Burrow is going to have Aaron Rodgers across the field from him. And, Cincinnati's defense has looked much better this year than they did last year, but it's not going to really matter to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to put up points, and Cincinnati's going to have to answer. And Joe Burrow, just from an NFL perspective, Joe Burrow has looked great this year, especially coming off the injury he had to deal with. He might be getting T. Higgins back, which is going to be a huge lift for his value if he does. Having Higgins and Jamar Chase, who we've already talked about on this podcast, and a reason why I'm so high on Jamar Chase this week is because of how this man is playing. And so, having his weapons back, having to put up points, and having a defense where he's not going to have to deal with Jair Alexander in the secondary. Same reason I mentioned it with Jamar Chase, it also applies to Joe Burrow. I'm very high on the Bengals offense from a fantasy perspective this weekend. I'm going to have a lot of shares of them at daily, and anywhere I have them in any type of keeper leagues or redraft leagues, anything like that, I'm firing up my Cincinnati Bengals pass catchers, and I'm firing up Joe Burrow this weekend. I think that they are in for a big week. This is the team that can really, throw an egg on my face this weekend, because if they shit the bed this weekend, they're going to make me look really bad. So I've got high hopes from them from an offensive, standpoint. Just to kind of put this into perspective, I'll go to the expert consensus rankings that the Fantasy Pros puts out on a week by week basis for quarterback for week 5 for the quarterback position. They've got Joe Burrow here at quarterback 16. I'm gladly starting him over Trey Lance against a improved Arizona defense, rookie quarterback in his first start. If Jimmy Garoppolo does miss, I'm starting him there. I'm starting him over Daniel Jones against a improved Dallas defense. While they do give up points, they do give up big plays, they also create turnovers. I'm starting him over Sam Darnold. I'm starting him over Justin Herbert, that we, just talked about as a fade. And then we start to get into the range where now you've got Aaron Rodgers, the guy that he's going up against. This is the range that I think he's in. I think that Joe Burrow is a top 12 quarterback this weekend. If you look at the expert consensus rankings for Fantasy Pros, they have him comfortably outside of that at quarterback 16. I think he finishes in this top 10 to 12 range with even more upside to finish upside, because Russell Wilson's already played. He's not going to be a top 12 quarterback this weekend. And Matthew Stafford had a fine NFL game. He might not even be a top 12 quarterback this weekend because he only threw one touchdown. He threw for 300 plus yards, but only one touchdown. So, like, you know, I feel very comfortable in saying that Joe Burrow is going to be a top 12, possibly top 10 quarterback this weekend. And right now he's sitting outside of the top 12 at quarterback 16. So, that I've been banging the table for Burrow as our quarterback sleeper for this weekend. It's going to suck if it doesn't hit because of how passionate I've been about him and Jamar Chase. But it's weird to me to see him so low with Jair Alexander out in the matchup and everything.
I agree. I think Burrow is a great play, especially on FanDuel and in DraftKings. A lot of people are not, like we talked about Chase earlier. Not a lot of people are on him right now. He's under 5%. Joe Burrow's right at 5% ownership. Or no, I'm sorry. Joe Burrow's at 4% ownership. So if you were wanting to stack a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, you're looking at under 10% ownership. If these guys could easily go off in a matchup with Green Bay without their best defensive player. And they're going to have to keep pace with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is going to score points as well. The salary is great on both sides. Burrow's a smash, man. It's a sleeper. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and he's playing the game and seeing the game just as well as just about any other quarterback is right now. Just absolutely fantastic mental aptitude for the game of football. I don't know if you saw last week whenever he was talking about them. He knew at some point that they were going to face the cover zero in that game. And it ended up being, the zero blitz. And it ended up being right towards the end whenever they threw that CJ Ozuma screen to get him in the field goal range to kick the field goal. He recognized the coverage. And he said in the press conference, he said, that was something I was looking for all week because I knew they were going to bring the heat. I knew that coverage was coming. And so I wanted to be ready for it. And whenever I got that look, he knew, and it ended up winning the game for him. So
please don't fuck up this guy, Cincinnati.
Yeah,
please.
yeah, just absolutely, absolutely fantastic mental aptitude, and he can make any throw on the field. His confidence is through the roof right now. He's got the
through the
roof. I think for sure this is a smash spot, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him continue to climb into that elite level of quarterbacks. There's actually an executive that this week actually came out and said that this might be the LeBron to, or no, it was the Kobe. He said this might be the Kobe to Tom Brady's Michael Jordan. That's how a lot of people are starting to view Joe Burrow and his ability.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like that's as high as praise as you can get. And so far, I mean, if for some reason the Cincinnati Bengals keep winning ball games,
imagine if they moved to 4-1. Imagine they beat Green Bay and
if
they moved
they
to 4-1.
If they win this game, I mean, if they win this game, I don't even know if you would put Kyler Murray above him as the MVP.
I mean, we were talking, comeback player of the year, and a lot of, I think
his aspirations are higher.
We said Christian McCaffrey, and you said Dak Prescott.
I had Dak, yeah.
Joe Burrow's in that conversation.
Burrow's gonna be right there, yeah.
And Joe Burrow, man, like I will say one thing too. What he reminds me a lot of is, it kind of reminds me a lot of Tom Brady in his younger years, but with a lot more up the field. Burrow, like you just don't feel like they're ever out of it. Like it's weird. Like I know, like they played Jacksonville last week, and that kind of like that was a weird, like it's Jacksonville. But
yeah. Well, I know too.
Stop throwing. He's gonna be.
I know too with him.
He's gonna be efficient.
I think part of the reason you feel like that is because he feels like that. If you watch the games, even especially if they're close, but at no point in time, excuse me, the guy doesn't panic, and I think that's that's one of the most impressive things for a young quarterback still trying to grow. I mean, and you got to think too. Essentially, he missed over half of his rookie year too. last year. So he's still growing in the NFL game. There's a lot of coverages he still hasn't seen live that, even though he's studying on game tape, the fact that he's still able to recognize those live in a ball game, when the bullets are flying, the guy just has a fantastic mental makeup. And
that receiving core is no joke.
No, yeah, absolutely.
That's a legit NFL receiving core, man. And no one
it's one of the better ones in the league. I mean,
no one talks about Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's extremely underrated.
Tyler Boyd's fantastic. T. Higgins is great. Obviously, Jamar Chase is. This is a very intriguing, and I know we kind of got off topic, of the fantasy thing, just to kind of gush on Joe Burrow a little bit, but I want to make sure we give this guy. Yeah, I mean, we just want to give this guy his flowers for starting the season the way he has started after all the adversity he's handled over the last year, and we're really excited to see his career path. Like Drew said, just hope the Cincinnati Bengals don't ruin him. We'll see about that, but
we better get rolling. I just realized I totally forgot I had a 10-hour drive tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah. And I got to be up and go to work.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, let's let Jared give us some more money making matchups for our DFS. That's the last thing we got to go over. We've hit all of our smash, our pass, our sleepers for all the different positions. So the last thing we have to cover is for week 5 for DFS, for DraftKings and FanDuel. You guys won me some money last weekend. If anybody else was listening, you won them some money. So, who are we playing to win some money this weekend?
So we'll start on FanDuel real quick. And I tell you what, man, Burrow, it was really tough. I ended up saving the salary on quarterback. It was absolutely a very, very tough one because these guys are right at the same point. I'm going to go a little different route. Because I want to get some pivots elsewhere. We're going to go Derek Carr at quarterback this week against the Bears. Vegas is currently sitting at a almost 25 point total as a team total in a game that I think is going to be a little bit more fast paced than what a lot of people think it's going to be. So I got Derek Carr at quarterback on FanDuel. We always run with a wide receiver from the same game. I'm going to double up this week on the ownership being so low, and I feel like confident. I'm feeling really good about Derek Carr having a bounce back game. So we're going to go with Henry Ruggs at wide receiver, and we're also going to go with Brian Edwards in the flex. He's going to be our flex guy this week. So we're going to have 2 Raiders receivers and 1 lineup with Derek Carr. I think we're going to double up, and it's going to get
Derek Carr without the Darren Waller.
Without Darren Waller. And the reason why it's not in the talent by no means. I think Darren Waller is going to be extremely popular on a slate with no Travis Kelce. I think he's going to be very popular, possibly 20% owned at the tight end position. And that's just a position outside of Kelce. I don't play anybody that highly owned personally. Running back is going to be our cover boy. It's going to be Alvin Kamara. Who was my smash at running back this week. Love the matchup against Washington. Love the fact that the guy had 26 touches with no targets last week. He could easily have 26 touches this week and 4 targets the way things are going. And I think the targets are going to go up a lot more. I think New Orleans coming off a loss is going to be trying to prove a point. They bounce back this week in a big way. This one kind of scares me, but it's a volume monster, man. Najee Harris is our second running back. It's a tough matchup against Denver, but I love the volume. This guy right here, Landon, you talked about it earlier. It's just absolutely insane. It's just absolutely.
He has 5 more targets than any other running back.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That game against Cincinnati, he had 19 targets. 19 targets. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. He's about as safe as they come.
What's great is that that Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator there for the Steelers, you can tell that he has Najee Harris on his fantasy team because he came out earlier this week and said, we are going to stick with what we are doing.
Yeah, we changed nothing.
Yeah, we will change nothing. We will stick with what we are doing.
And God love him. I hope he's not pulling our tails on anything, because and both Kamara and Najee Harris are going to be very popular. But at the same time, Derrick Henry's popularity this week is through the roof. And basically these guys right here combined are slightly over Derrick Henry's ownership currently as we stand. So you're basically getting 2 for 1. And not playing Henry, trying to get off of that a little bit. Our second wide receiver, is going to be Chris Godwin this week. Godwin's currently under 10% ownership in a game where I think Brady makes a statement. I think, last week he threw 0 touchdowns. He's going to throw a touchdown this week. Godwin has not caught a touchdown. Godwin's kind of been on the back burner to Antonio Brown and Mike Evans. I think this week Godwin bounces back in a big way. I just have a good feeling about it. Our third wide receiver, because we had Edwards in the flex, we're going to go with Devontae Adams, which do I really need to explain why we're going with Devontae Adams? It's just a
self-explanatory.
Yeah, it's a dumb amount of target share. He's gonna garner ownership, but by us playing these Raiders wide receivers at next to nothing ownership, we're getting away from a normal build. So I like Devontae Adams in that aspect. Our tight end, we're going back to the well, and it did not pay off last week. We're going back to Tyler Conklin. They're playing a Detroit team that they're still finding themselves defensively. I do think that the running back situation right now is kind of iffy with Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison's a great running back, but Cook is still going to take the field. I don't think he's going to sit out, but I can see that backfield being split. And then at that point, you got Jefferson and Thielen on the outside, where this tight end is still getting 6 targets a game. It's goofy. All he's got to do is fall in the end zone, man. He's right there. He had 6 targets last week, so it wasn't like we were way off on anything. He had 4 receptions, but only 18 yards. Kirk Cousins in that offense scored 7 points. I think they'll score definitely more than 7 points against Detroit, and I could see Conklin easily falling in the end zone. So that leaves us with a defense, and we have plenty of money to spend up on. I personally like Tampa Bay's defense this week. I know the secondary is definitely a question mark with all the injuries. Miami's not running the ball. Like, that's not going to happen. Obviously, they've had trouble at the running back position to begin with, and now they play Tampa, and that's just non-existent. They do not let anybody run the football whatsoever. So it's going to get to the point where Miami has to become one-dimensional, and at that point, they're going to have to throw the ball, and at that point, turnovers happen. And no matter how bad a secondary is, I roll the dice with quarterbacks that have no choice to throw the football. And with Miami's situation at quarterback, either way, whoever the quarterback is, I think Tampa Bay can get it together for a week and make some noise and possibly cause a few turnovers that could result into touchdowns being ran back. There's a lot of different things. With defense, you're kind of throwing darts anyways, but I do like Tampa's defense this week. So on FanDuel, it looks like we got Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris, Chris Godwin, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Adams, Tyler Conklin, Brian Edwards, and the Tampa Bay defense.
I've got it plugged in. I've got it locked into a lineup for this weekend. So,
the millionaire
let's go.
So you swapping over to DraftKings. What's the free lineup for DraftKings this weekend?
So we're going to try to keep it as close as possible. To always sum up, DraftKings and FanDuel are 2 completely different sites with 2 different pricing groups. Where FanDuel is a little bit softer on pricing, DraftKings is a little bit stronger on certain players, obviously. And then you got the full point PPR on DraftKings opposed to the half point PPR on FanDuel. But we're going to try to keep it as close as possible. And we got Derek Carr at quarterback once again. We are not double stacking, I apologize. We are double stacking. We're going back to Brian Edwards, a wide receiver, and Henry Ruggs, a wide receiver. So it gives us 2 opportunities with the Carr throwing the ball, that with 2 receivers that hopefully something that maybe they both get an end zone. That would be a fantastic day. So at running back, we're going to switch it up a little bit. We got to save some salary, and we're going to go with Saquon Barkley at 7,300 on DraftKings. Barkley, it looks like the Barkley of old. I think this game right here, being a division game, could easily shoot out. I think the Giants maybe gained some confidence against New Orleans in New Orleans, taking a game in overtime and eventually winning the thing. Daniel Jones has been a lot better than advertised, fantasy-wise at least. And I think with Barkley back, he's definitely going to get some target share, and he'll get all the handoffs. Like, he'll be the primary back in that offense. This one right here kind of scares me, but at the same time, like, the volume is there, and no matter what, he seems to be matchup proofed. And Minnesota's defense has not been that good. We're going to go with DeAndre Swift in the second running back position. I trust the player. I think he is coming on. He still had the same groin injury all year long. So you're going to see the big Q next to his name, obviously, going into it, but there's really nothing to fear there. He's had that since week 1, and his productivity has not changed any. And something that kind of helps out is the backup running back situation. There is a legit injury on that end. And I think that could cut into even Swift having even more productivity in what he's had over the last few weeks. We're keeping it as close as possible. We're going back to Devontae Adams, a wide receiver. Don't have to explain much on that. Chris Godwin once again at wide receiver as well. Tyler Conklin at tight end. And the defense is a little bit different situation on DraftKings. It looks like we're going to go with the Saints defense against the Washington football team.
I can dig it. And
yeah.
Like we've said many times, if you did play with us last week, you won some money. So hopefully, whenever you do that, just make sure you share the podcast with your friends and let them know, so we can all win money together, because that's what it's all about. So, I mean, anybody else got anything to add other than, Andrew doing the normal ending? No more Urban Meyer jokes?
No, I'm excited. At the point of recording, week 5 has already gotten off to a great start for me because the Rams got the win. I got a very, very small profit on FanDuel from my my 1-game stack from the Rams. So the Rams won me a little bit of money. The Rams won their game. So week 5 is off to a much better start than week 4 was. So just excited to hopefully hit some more on these picks like we did last week.
Yeah, for sure. And the Colts have the Ravens on Monday night, so that'll be fun.
Your mic's kind of mumbly.
Oh, is it? Is this better?
No.
No, that's weird. Okay. All right. What about now?
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go.
Back.
Okay. Okay. So sorry about that, guys. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, so the Colts play the Ravens on Monday nights. That'll be an experience. And hopefully we'll be coming back to you next week with a W, but hopefully we come back to you next week also with a little bit extra money in our pockets as well as yours. Yeah. So that's what it's all about, is making money, having fun with your friends, talking about some football, watching some games, fondling some booties, living the good life.
Lord.
So we're gonna end it on that note. We'll let Drew do the closing, and then we will get out of here.
Yeah, so first and foremost, shout out to Urban Meyer for the continuous jokes that just continue to write themselves. We appreciate you giving us never-ending content to to talk about here. So thank you much for that, sir. But for people other than Urban Meyer that are still listening, we appreciate you for hanging out with us. Regardless of how many people that have been listening, these first 5 weeks have been an absolute blast for me. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as well. We're anywhere that you can find a podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever the case may be. We're there. Like, follow, subscribe, whatever that platform wants you to do. Now they're all different, but we appreciate the support. And then if you want the visuals to go with the audio, be sure to head over to YouTube. We've got the we've got some backdrops to go with what we're talking about as well. So whenever you head over to YouTube, make sure that you like the video here for the week 5 money making matchups, and drop some comments and let us know where you agree, where you disagree, possibly the matchups that you're highlighting that we didn't touch on. Any likes and comments, anything like that, really help us out on YouTube. And then while you're there, of course, make sure to subscribe to the channel. and hit the little bell that pops up, whenever you do subscribe, so that you can be notified whenever the new podcasts go live. We're only rolling out 2 a week, so we're not blowing you up with notifications, anything like that. Make sure that you're aware whenever the new ones go live, so you can hopefully, make some smart start decisions and get a little bit richer as well in the process. So, but as always, of course, the main thing is thank you, and thank you.
Yes, thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.